Hello guys, Forristicat here. Yesterday I finished Max Payne 3, and I want to give my thoughts on the series. Not in depth. I'm not gonna go into too much detail. But however, I was very impressed with Max Payne 3. So basically, my expectations were exceeded in this case. Like, I knew it was going to be good. I enjoyed the first two games, even though they did have their problems with, as many people have mentioned, some of these dream sequences were weird. His facial expression on the first two games, I believe, I can't remember if it was number 1 or number 2, was sort of like very, like uptight face and stuff like that, which was strange. But nevertheless, the style of noir with this haunting music in the background, combined with these comic cutscenes, create a very interesting visual storytelling piece, which was really different to any other game I've personally played before. And I seriously, personally, I haven't played like that like many noir, dark, gritty games as Max Payne 1 and 2. It really accomplished this with the storyline of having your baby daughter killed along with your wife, which has led to Max Payne being one of the more interesting anti-heroes of our time. And when I heard Max Payne 3 was being developed by Rockstar Entertainment, I think it is, developed by Rockstar Vancouver, I was skeptical. I thought to myself, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You shouldn't be jumping developers. I think it was it Take Two. It wasn't Take Two. I can't remember who developed it before. Nevertheless, I thought, okay, they're changing the formula a bit here, and there's an interesting debate. Like, sometimes you've got to try something different to make something work, but at the same time, you might think, oh, we've already done all the same stuff before. Should we really be changing the formula? A random example is like if you go to a new restaurant. You think that oh, should I try a new dish? You try the new dish. You're taking a risk. But how can you get a new favorite dish unless you take that risk? And you wouldn't be having favorite dishes unless you chose those dishes for the first time as a risk. What's my point? My point is, sometimes you have to change up the formula in order to go to different directions in whatever you're doing. In Rockstar's Vancouver's case, they knew what they were doing and they proved me wrong. So when I was playing sort of like the game, I found it interesting how, instead of having your sort of comic cutscenes, which sort of I guess took you out of the experience because like the gameplay was different, like the visuals was different to the actual comic cutscenes which you experienced, that sort of detracted from it. Whereas in Max Payne 3, the style is sort of like having like text of what the character is saying, like important quotes sort of being overlaid over what is happening on screen, and having like these weird flashes and stuff like that, like these blue tints, these sort of like flashing like a seizure or something like that, sometimes blurry, to sort of like symbolize how intoxicated or how many drugs Max Payne is actually on at the time. So I thought that was a really good way of of sort of switching from that comic storytelling delivery system to something which was obviously different, but nevertheless maintaining that sort of like theme of having like a overt narrative as you progress through the game. I thought that was fantastic, and I didn't really think that changing the style would work. But in this case, it took like the level of quote unquote badassery to a whole new level. Like this game, like it started off like first of all, I must mention, like, on a visual sense, the attention to detail in this game was incredible. Like, the voice acting was great. I was most impressed with like every little single thing you see in this game. It's sort of like is realistic. Like, when you're tearing through these environments are sort of like very detailed. Like, there's no two places which look the same. Everything feels authentic. Everything is detailed. The sounds are detailed. There's just so much variety in the amount of environments you travel through that it really adds to sort of like Max Payne's sort of like tour of destruction throughout this universe. and that was fantastic. It almost felt like you were playing like I'm not saying like Max Payne is obviously not James Bond, but with the amount of locations in there, I thought, wow, this is sort of like James Bond-esque in a way. But of course, Max Payne is obviously a very different character to James Bond. But nevertheless, I thought that the storyline was excellent. I still haven't fully understood the storyline because I sort of like played through a little bit, fast and stuff. But most games, what I do, I buy a game. After I play the game, I sell it, and then after like a whole console generation is over, I sell that console with all the games before the next generation comes about, and then with the money I get from those games, I will put towards the next generation of consoles, games, or whatever. In the meantime, I'm going to keep the games I find most appealing and sell the rest, because the rest, just didn't really appeal to me that much. And yeah, it turns out Max Payne 3, there hasn't been a game for a while that I've kept. Max Payne 3, I'm probably not going to sell Max Payne 3 because it's such an enjoyable experience. Like literally, it's one of those games where you feel like you've played like, you've been like the main like superstar action hero after you've finished the game. Definitely like the end scene in the airport where you're sort of by yourself and like you're sort of like shooting all these guys, and you've got that soundtrack. I think One Last Card to Play song, I think, is fantastic. It's incredible. The storytelling is good, as I mentioned. I've picked up a couple of times where the writing sort of was a little bit sloppy in that, like, I think they seem to push that it's okay if they mention it like a couple of times. I think too many times I called like the theme of sort of more bad guys to kill, just another hopeless quest, more pathetic desperation, throwing myself in the deep end, another dead woman. I think like I heard, like when I've heard this for the first time, like yes, they're linking this back to the first two games, sort of like tying everything together. Especially like when there's like a couple of flashbacks which are done pretty well, where Max Payne is like in his old sort of like old-fashioned like cop gear without his beard and stuff. I thought that was excellently done. Sort of like threw back like a wink and a nod to fans who have been through like the Max Payne experience with everyone. But sometimes I thought that they were pushing those sort of like those themes a little bit too far on, so it became like overkill. It's like, okay, I understand, like like he can't get away from like his predicaments, and he keeps on recreating the same situation of like being involved with girls in trouble and stuff like that, and like always sort of like putting his life on the line for something that he cares about, but at the same time he has his like death wish and stuff like that. But all in all, like that, there was just so much sort of like different ways the story, like the storyline's twisted and turned. Like I didn't think it would go sort of that crazy. Like you end up in a police station, like in the Brazilian airport, and the moves where like like slow motion. I mean, playing a game in slow motion where you're shooting guys from a purely entertainment value is fantastic. It's so fun. I remember like one part of like the game yesterday, he sees like these bad guys like through a window. He like takes a look at this table. He jumps on the table and he's like sliding across the table, like shooting these guys, and you have the opportunity to like pop them down like ducks. Stuff like that is great. I admit, like because I'm having less and less time to play games these days. I played it on easy, so all your gamers are probably like, Forristicat is soft, blah blah blah, whatever. But nevertheless, even on easy towards the end, I was finding it hard. I'm not sure this is about me as a gamer, but yeah, like with on easy, the auto lock sort of like locks the guys automatically. And as a gamer, of course, it requires no skill, but like I suspend my disbelief, and I'm like, oh, Max Payne is that good, like that's how good of a shot he is or whatever. But even towards the end, they're like, just with the amount of like the Brazilian finest there, like the Brazilian cops, they're just shooting me because they just came from all directions. Like the AI was pretty intelligent. Like I'll be shooting guys from the front, and there'll be a guy coming from the back, and I would have to remember when I die that, okay, a guy's going to come from the back, I need to shoot him, blah blah blah. But yeah, overall, like it definitely exceeded my expectations. I thought it would be good. I thought it would just be like an interesting tack on. But yeah, what they've done with this game is really great. And like when I think about the whole story as a whole, and like just the amount of locations you went to, like the amount of sort of like one-liners, like that line in the game, you know, like I'd rather die in the sun than die in the snow. Like this just, the writers obviously like thought like a lot about this character. He's sort of like, he's sort of, you know, his death wish, like his sort of like bleak outlook on life. It felt pretty dark playing it, like literally like when you're seeing him in his apartment, he's just like drinking and like drinking bourbon and stuff like that, you know. And I was like sitting alone in my apartment in the dark playing this game, I'm like, shit, this is really, you know, depressing stuff. And just when you thought like you like Max Payne couldn't go sort of like any further into his sort of, I guess, darkness and like sadness and like self-pity and, you know, like anger against the world, you know, the game like took it to another level, and you even found yourself like, you know, seeing Max Payne go deeper into that sort of territory. So they really pushed that aspect to the extreme, in my opinion. I'm going to start wrapping up now because I've said pretty much all that can be said. But yeah, on a bottom note, like definitely exceeded my expectations. I liked how it said like Max Payne 3 at the start, then like when you finish the game, boom, you got the Max Payne 3 logo. You know, sort of like Christopher Nolan does at the end of, you know, the Batman movies. Like I like games that start with like a caption, I think, like sort of the title of the game, like Red Dead Redemption, and at the end when you finish it, it shows the same thing and it plays the credits, because I like playing games that sort of come across as a movie. And Max Payne 3 with, you know, its sort of visual style definitely did come across like that, and I'm very glad to have bought it and play it. And I think that everyone who has played Max Payne 1 and 2 and are having sort of doubts about playing Max Payne 3, it's not only entertaining, but it's a great piece of storytelling and definitely an interesting reboot to the Max Payne 3 franchise, which I didn't think was going to work out. Not only did it work out, it exceeded it, and makes me wondering if there's going to be a Max Payne 4. Alright guys, I'll give this game probably about, I'll give it an 8.5 out of 10. I'm going to get a shower now, so yeah, thanks guys for listening to this, and take care, and later.